Hey, vinyl community, Jeff here, back again with another of my top 10 great, whatever you want to call it. We're going to look at 1986 this time around. I've been doing this, started in 77, if you've been following, and I am looking at 10 great albums from specific years that I have in my collection on vinyl. So it's limited to vinyl. It's limited to ones I own, which eliminates a lot of the bands that I really wish I did own that may have been in the countdown. But for now, this is what I've got and what I am able to show. So I'm kind of limiting myself. It makes it easier in some cases because there's so many great releases. So anyway, again, it's not going to be what I would consider the absolute top 10 from whatever year, because I don't own necessarily everything that I might consider. But this is a top 10 of what I own on vinyl. Let's get right into this. I did notice 1986 was a little lighter than 84 and 85. I noticed that as I was getting into the 80s, there was the number of bands to choose from was getting bigger and bigger. 84, 85 was a just outrageous double page amount of things to choose from. But 86, not so much. I don't know if it was so much it was in 84 and 85 that 86 became light. I mean, there were a lot of great albums. But and actually there were a handful of bands, I won't mention names, but a handful of bands that musically had weaker albums in 86 who maybe had great albums in 85. But overall there were fewer bands to choose from. I mean, the list was much shorter for 86. And I'm not saying just because of the ones I own. Just in general, when I looked at the different charts for 1986 and the different albums I own, I'm just like, there's not as many to choose from. Anyway, enough rambling. Let's get into it. The first one is one of the ones I'm talking about. 1986, the first release from Bride, Show No Mercy. This is a real recent reissue, vinyl reissue. I do have an OG copy, some pretty purple. Bride they would fall into the category of Christian heavy metal, hard rock heavy metal. I had followed them a couple years earlier than this when they were called Matrix. They had a bunch of demos out. Totally different type of musical style than what they ended up coming out with Bride. I mean, I say totally, but basically you've got demos recorded in your garage, great sounding, high quality recordings. They've always released great demo material, but and maybe they're not so much demos as they were just indie releases, because they were released by the band. They had cassettes. The labels were typed on a dot matrix printer, basically. The covers were just a photo of the band that they cut to fit into the case. But it was great stuff, kind of more on the hard rock edge. But then when they came out and got signed with Show No Mercy, it definitely was quite a bit more of an aggressive attack. Vocal style, he kind of went with a more screechy, soaring type vocals than you could see the potential there on the early recordings, but on this one, it just maybe being in the studio, it really accentuated that. Following albums, we get a little more. His voice gets a little more. This was a little more. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to give the wrong impression of saying lower budget, but I'm sure the cost for getting in the studio maybe was as much. In my opinion, there's a little bit more of a harshness to his voice. People call this at times speed metal because there are some really fast-paced things. Whereas on following albums, his vocal style is very, very powerful, yet not quite as has some of the harshness here. So this is like a totally different sounding album. They've changed sound on almost every album. They just keep changing the way they sound. But this one, really sounds, in my opinion, very much different than following albums. And it's a great album. To this day, still love it. So when they reissued this, I had to grab that. I'm probably rambling too much about that. But there we go. Number 10. Now, here's a band that changed styles also in 1986. And I got to admit, I honestly didn't really like this when it first came out. Van Halen's 5150. So here we are. We're on the tail end. David Lee Roth leaves the band. We've got a new singer, Sammy Hagar. How's it going to sound? So, probably one of their most popular, or one of their most famous records, probably one of their most financially pleasing records. It did excellent. It did well. They really knocked it out of the park with the Van Halen change up, and when they Van Hagar years, they really financially took it to the moon. In my opinion, that was because they did go a little more commercial. The commerciality, I guess, plays on the radio. A lot of radio hits and stuff during this time frame. The album prior to this jump, in my opinion, was that Van Halen sound starting to move in that direction, but still with David Lee Roth. All the previous to the 1984 jump era, of Van Halen, all the previous ones, in my opinion, were a bit more of the hard rock sound. You could see it kind of sneaking in and Diver Down, and then with 1984, it became much more commercial, and then it just moved into this and became even more so. Honestly, in my opinion, when it got to this, I was a big Hagar fan before this. All the stuff that they did before this, all of his material, I really enjoyed. When he got to Van Halen, I think even his sound of what I was liking about him kind of changed. And anyway, when it first came out, I was kind of like, didn't really favor it. But over the years, you got to admit it. It's very catchy. It's very, anyway, it's become a great album. So I'm ranking this one in at number 9. It's got some of the great songs. Why Can't This Be Love? Best of Both Worlds. I mean, it's Dreams. It's just all over. Great stuff. 1986, number 9. And on the flip side, David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em, Smile. So, David Lee Roth, 1984, Van Halen, kind of commercial. He leaves the band. He puts out the Crazy from the Heat, the EP, and it's a totally different, non-rockin', cover tune of California Girls and Just a Gigolo, and very different show tune sounding album. And so we were like, where's Dave going with this? He goes from this hard rockin' David Lee Roth version of Van Halen into this strange studio cover tuney show tune sounding David Lee Roth solo stuff. I admit I love the album, but it's a way different change. So then here we go. First album, David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile. And it's, in my opinion, obviously I ranked it number 8. I think it's, in my opinion, a little stronger than the 5150 by Van Halen that released the same year. Only because of, musically it's a little more energetic. It's a little less commercial. You've got Steve Vai, you've got Billy Sheehan, you've got Greg Bissonette. You've got an all-star band, which of course became too expensive to afford, so he didn't end up keeping them for very long. But just an amazing album. You got great, funny videos that came out at this time. Yankee Rose, big hit. You got Shy Boy, which is a cover of a Talas tune from Billy Sheehan, but it's just an amazing album, going crazy. Lots of great, fun stuff. This, in my opinion, was kind of a return to the pre-1984, or maybe around the same 1984, Van Halen sound. I just think it was a little less commercial at times than some of the stuff on 1984. So it's kind of like in that range of David Lee Roth after Diver Down and, having fun. So great album. Still a strong album to this day at number 8. This is one that most people don't give a lot of kudos to. I just recently got it in a previous video. I showed it, which is glad because now I can show it. But number 7, Queensryche, Rage for Order. Now, very much a different style. They changed sounds. The last album was just straightforward rock, metal, and then all of a sudden they come into this and it's got a lot of electronica and strange sounds. But I was totally mesmerized, back in the day with Want to Get Close to You. It's just such a weird sounding and creepy song, but amazing. And every song on this, I think, is got a certain appeal to it. And yeah, it is different. It's kind of more experimental, but I ended up loving it. I think it's a really strong album. It's just, a change from what the band had done with the previous two. But absolutely love it. Number 7. Number 6, Loudness, Lightning Strikes. So this is during that what I was calling my trilogy. I think I said trifecta back in the day. But these first 3 English U.S. released Loudness albums are very strong in my mind. The first one with Thunder from the East, you got on this, you got like Let It Go. That is just an infectious guitar riffage and everything. And just this whole album has got that one, just sweet spot commercial metal appeal of that day. Excellent playing, excellent musicianship, excellent everything. It's the loudness sound, you know. It's got that that Japanese sound with his vocals and everything, but it is it's just, in my opinion, still one of their strong albums. So I put that in at number 6. Number 5, Saint Times End. I showed them previously because I had an EP out, and then this would have been their first full-length album. Again, this is the one that was just recently reissued in the past year or so on Red. Saint, very much always compared to like a Judas Priesty sound just because of Josh Kramer's vocals. They've got the metallic, they got some, you can't really see it, but they got the leather and the studs. So they've got the Judas Priest look. Yeah, I guess you could see it there. So a lot of those comparisons go, and they go hand in hand with the music. Musically, they are in that, just that sweet spot of straightforward metal, aka Judas Priesty, and they compare it because of the look and the sound of his vocals. He doesn't go with the soaring vocals, but he's got the just that mid-range growl. One of my favorite vocalists, metal vocalist, Josh Kramer. Just great stuff. And this is an absolute classic album that just blew me away in 1986 when I first bought that. Likewise, this one, right on the heels of that one, the first Bloodgood album. I remember being at a friend's band practice and one of their friends coming in saying, hey, I heard this new band from over in the Washington, Oregon area called Good Blood or something. They're coming out with an album. They sound really good. So it would turn out to be Bloodgood, based on Michael Bloodgood, who recently passed away. But this album, when it came out, blew me away, blew us away. We absolutely loved it. Became a favorite. Spun it all the time. Still to this day, absolutely love this album. It's near and dear to my heart. At the time of my life, it was very, very moving to us. And so it's I think a lot of times we rank albums based on the nostalgia of what the albums mean to us. And where we were at the place in life when we got it. That's where a lot of these come from. At this time of my life, because most of these albums I bought in 1986. And so they have fond memories of that time frame, and they continue to be fond memories just based on the situations and the times that we were going through. But anyway, great album. Still love it. They upgraded it, remastered, all of that, reissued it. I have an original version of it on vinyl too, but this absolutely great album at number 4. Number 3, you know they had to be in here, and they didn't make it to number 1 like last time, but we got Stryper's To Hell with the Devil. In my opinion, this is what people are going to kind of consider the high water point for Stryper in the 80s. This is the one that, I mean, they had stuff from the previous album, but this is the one that MTV went wild over. This is the one they had multiple videos. The record label was putting tons of money in them. Calling on You, Free, Honestly. I mean, these are all songs that went on to be big when it comes to the video airplay and everything. And, you know, rightly so. It's a great commercial glam metal album. Very Christianized, of course, with the To Hell with the Devil. This cover, because it seemed like it had a pentagram here, and it just, the Christian market didn't know what to do with it, so they made them redo the cover with just a black cover with this logo on it. Sadly, great stuff, great album, and yeah, it's got some really hits. And of course, the songs that made it to the radio are the more commercial ones. Most fans are going to tell you to listen to things like The Way, or Rockin' the World, or More Than a Man. They are, you know, very much more edgy and not as commercial as the other ones. But overall, from start to finish, it is just a amazing, great album. Sounds great. Number 3, and I do have a picture of this version of it. Why not show that, right? This is a numbered picture. How many does it say there were? Not sure, but I got, I don't know, number 5,000 something. But anyway, yeah, the picture just has a poster and stuff in it. Just showing that, throwing that in there. All right, number 2 is Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I admit, in 1986, I did not have this album at that time. It took me many years later before I started going back to the catalog and picking up Iron Maiden. So everything prior to this, I was a little more familiar with. This one, I came a few years later. I got back into Iron Maiden, and, you know, this has become one of the favorites. I mean, it's got great stuff. Can I Play With Men? Oh, funny thing to me. 1986, going back to the Bride album. First song on this album is called Evil That Men Do. And of course, the 1, 2, 3, 4th song on this album is called The Evil That Men Do. So, man, men must be doing a lot of evil in 1986 for Iron Maiden and Bride to cover it. But anyway, yeah, so you got that. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, you kind of play with Madness. This album is just chock full. I mean, to me, they're all hits, but yeah. And of course, I'm getting ready to do an Iron Maiden tribute band with some guys coming up in the next couple of months, and quite a few. The Clairvoyant, Can I Play with Madness? Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I think a handful of songs are coming from this album. It is one of their solid albums. I think after this, you start kind of seeing a little waning in the Iron Maiden camp. I think this album and prior is just like mega album. It just, every album is great. And then I don't know, we start seeing a little bit of the favor waning when it comes to the upcoming albums beyond this, but still a solid album. I love that album. And number one, and this has nothing to do with Stranger Things, is Metallica's Master of Puppets. Again, another album that I did not have immediately in 1986, but I think, well, I know I heard it. I think I had a cassette copy. But when I did hear it, I was totally blown away. It's just from start to finish. I don't think there's a weak track on this album. I believe, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many fans, the first 3 Metallica albums are just classics. They're just, in my opinion, pretty much perfect. I think we start seeing cracks after this. There are some amazing stuff that's been released after this, but I'm hard pressed to find weakness on the first 3 albums, and this is the pinnacle of that. It's just, they had the sound, they were getting the popularity, the record company was probably putting a little more money into them. You can see a big improvement between albums 1 and 2, and I think there's a big improvement between 2 and 3. And I would say that first 3 albums are must-have, and the rest of them, they're all great. They got a lot of great stuff, but you have to have the first 3. Number 1, Metallica's Master of Puppets. Great stuff. That's it. Much too long. Thanks for watching. I'll be back. Rock on and rock hard.